Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Friday, March 6th. Quite an interesting weather situation setting up for today. We've been talking about this for several days now, really since the end of last week. We have a strong wave in the atmosphere, a clipper system dropping southeastward from the Great Lakes into the northeast U.S. At the same time, the southern storm that has been plaguing the southern states with significant rain over the past few days has pushed off the Carolina coastline. It will move out over the western Atlantic and intensify rapidly when it starts to interact with that clipper system. An inverted trough extending from the center of that ocean storm all the way northwest into the mid-Atlantic region will set up later today into tonight. That inverted trough, sometimes called a Norlund trough, is an area of convergence. It leads to more upward motion and perhaps some heavier bands of precipitation right along that trough axis. Again, it'll extend from the southeast to the northwest, from the ocean storm all the way into the mid-Atlantic region later today and tonight. The interesting thing also about that clipper system is it has quite cold air in the upper part of the atmosphere. In fact, the upper part of the atmosphere will become increasingly colder as the day goes on and into the nighttime hours. We could have rain, possibly mixed with snow at times during the day today in much of the mid-Atlantic region. A little bit more likely to see snow showers tonight mixed with rain at times tonight. Maybe even some small grassy accumulations in some parts of the mid-Atlantic region, especially north and west of Philly, maybe the far northern suburbs of D.C. Places like the higher elevations of West Virginia may get pounded with blizzard-like conditions for a while. And this time of the year, elevation is an important factor. The higher elevation locations of the suburbs could easily see a little bit more snow than lower elevation locations. If you're 500 feet compared to a neighboring suburban area that's 200 feet, you might see more snow out of this system later today into tonight. This is the current radar loop, and where you really can see the two different features here. First of all, notice this kind of swirl in the radar echoes over Ohio. This is the clipper system. This is cold air in the upper part of the atmosphere. It's dropping southeast through the Ohio Valley into the northeast U.S. Meanwhile, this batch of precipitation over the Delmarva Peninsula all the way down into southeastern Virginia, that's associated with that southern storm system moving off the Carolina coastline right now. So you have the low pressure area representing the southern system, and a lot of echoes now showing up over the Ohio Valley. Again, higher elevation regions of West Virginia could get several inches of snow, maybe even blizzard-like conditions. Now I think Snowshoe Mountain could get really hit hard with some snow during this clipper system passing over West Virginia into the mid-Atlantic region. Well, let's take a look at last night's zero-Z operational run of the GFS. And first, let's look at the 500 millibar level. This represents what remains of that wave of energy that came all the way across the country from off the southern California coastline into northern Mexico, across Texas, and all the way through the southern states. It helped to produce significant rainfall and some severe weather from Texas to the Carolinas, pushing off the coast right now. And it looks like it's a weaker system. Indeed it is, but this is the clipper system. It's been dropping southeast over the past few days from southern Canada into the northern plains, the Great Lakes, now the Ohio Valley, and moving into the mid-Atlantic region. Once this gets kind of absorbed into the overall system here, that surface low pressure over the western Atlantic will intensify rapidly. And I mean rapidly. It'll drop many, many millibars in just a few hours. Could lead to hurricane force winds out over the open waters of the western Atlantic. And again, with that interaction between the ocean storm and the clipper system, there will be an inverted trough extending northwest from that low pressure center off the east coast to the mid-Atlantic region. Let's move forward here, and you see this thing just kind of digging south and east. At this time later today, you'll have a very, very strong storm. Fortunately, it's well off the coast. It will not impact directly the northeast coastline of the U.S., but go a couple hundred miles off the coast later today and tonight, you may see wind gusts at hurricane force levels with a very, very powerful ocean storm. But here's that instability in the atmosphere, and again, it has a lot of cold air aloft. So even though surface temperatures today could climb into the 40s, get a heavier snow band, you get what we call dynamic cooling effects, where heavier snow bands associated with upward motion, rising air in the atmosphere that can bring down some of that colder air from aloft and cause rain to change over to snow, given that cold air in the upper part of the atmosphere. That keeps moving on out of here on Saturday. This is the forecast map for Saturday morning. Quite a blustery and cold day to start the weekend here in the Mid-Atlantic region. Highs confined to the 40s, wind gusts maybe 25, 30 miles per hour or so. Winds will die down tomorrow night, and then a real big warm-up begins on Sunday, much milder, well up in the 50s, and then Monday looks like a spectacular day for this time of the year. Plenty of sunshine, high temperatures well up in the 60s in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Not a bad weekend to make it a 3-day weekend. Take the day off on Monday. Well, let's take a look now at the surface forecast map from the Zero-Z GFS, and we'll focus in on the northeastern part of the nation, because this is really the interesting setup with that developing ocean storm, that intensifying ocean storm, the inverted trough extending from that storm all the way to the Mid-Atlantic region, all combined with that Clipper system here. We have precipitation as we start the day associated with the southern storm, and out here over the Ohio Valley, colder air, more in the way of snow depicted here with the blues out here in the Ohio Valley with that Clipper system. Let's now move forward here and look at this. All of a sudden here by early afternoon, we're seeing some more significant precipitation. Again, not surprising with, you can kind of see the isobar pattern here setting up with this little kind of kink here in the isobar pattern. That is the initial sign of an inverted trough kind of extending in this direction from that low pressure system. This is early afternoon. Now notice here, 994 millibar low at this particular time, again with that inverted trough setting up, and this can go all the way out into this region. Quite often with a northern trough, which is an inverted trough extending northwest from a low pressure center, you have heavier bands of precipitation setting up, because it's really a convergence zone all along this area right here that is the focus of precipitation. And look at the output of the GFS model. The yellows here represent heavier rainfall, the blues, dark blues, heavier snowfall. Don't be surprised to see some heavier bursts of precipitation from this system over the next several hours or so, going into the evening hours here. And again, it could be rain or snow, depending on how heavy the precipitation falls, how high your elevation is. Kind of a very unsettled day in the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S. Let's now move ahead another few hours here. Here we go. Now notice, let me just go back here. Look at that pressure. 994 early afternoon to 976 by 7 p.m. tonight. That is just an incredible intensification here, and again could lead to hurricane force winds out over the open waters of the western Atlantic. And again, we have this extension, this trough axis right here showing up in the isobar pattern, really right back into the Mid-Atlantic region. It can be some heavier bursts of precipitation right along that trough axis here that extends from the southeast to the northwest. And any of one of those heavier heavier precipitation bands could cause a changeover from rain to snow, or certainly a mixing of the precipitation. Let's go ahead another 6 hours. Still have some lingering rain and snow showers in the Mid-Atlantic region. This is now late evening. That low now down to a 968 millibar low. Very interesting weather could set up for Cape Cod, eastern Massachusetts later on tonight, with this tremendous storm off the eastern seaboard out over the western Atlantic. Notice also this kind of band here is kind of swinging southwestward, and it looks like that's been a consistent pattern here in the models this kind of swinging southwester we finally get to early tomorrow morning, 968 millibar low, well off the coast, basically pulling out to sea at this time. Precipitation is over with, but the isobar pattern, the tight pressure gradient on Saturday, will lead to very noticeable wind gusts out of the north to northwest in the mid-Atlantic region. No doubt about it, a cold, blustery day on Saturday with partly sunny skies in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. The winds diminish on Saturday night, a cold night, but then a big warm-up begins on Sunday, well up in the 50s, and a very nice day for this time of the year on Monday with high temperatures well up in the 60s in the I-95 corridor region. So a very interesting setup for the next several hours, really going right through the evening hours. We'll have to monitor closely the potential setup of these heavier precipitation bands along this inverted trough that will play a big role as the ocean storm interacts with that Clipper system over the next several hours. That's it for now. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.